Hello, I'm Clive from New Forest Sounds and welcome to my little sound workshop where I turn tapes and audio files into interesting different things to put up on the New Forest Sounds website. I think the New Forest National Park Authority's Forest Awakening Festival is a really good way to wake us all up to the climate and nature emergencies facing us right here in the forest right now. Living in the forest, it's all too easy for us to forget how rare and fragile the landscape actually is and just take it for granted. And I think we need to take pride in it and try and understand it more. I've been trying to do just that by capturing its unique and beautiful sounds and sharing them on my newforestsounds.co.uk website for everyone to just freely enjoy. Research has shown that listening to these sounds of nature can be beneficial for reducing anxiety and stress levels. But it's my hope that as people listen, they'll reflect on ways that they can help forest nature and start to do their bit to reverse the effects of the climate crisis on our beautiful new forest. Not just for us, but for future generations. Usually I'm out in the forest just recording a range of different natural sounds, and then coming in here I can mess around with them. So I've got tape recorders and things here, which is quite old school, but it's good fun, and I'll show you why I do things with these sorts of old tape recorders. These are machines from the 1960s, and they're all old valve things, great fun. But at the same time, sometimes I'll actually use synthesizers and musical instruments to actually link in with the sounds that I've actually recorded over in the forest to create like ambient music. So I'll show you a little bit of that as well and how I do things. And this is an MPC. It means that you can actually hit these different pads, and every pad can trigger one of the sounds of the New Forest, and you can create things with that. But we've got things that will create sort of drum tracks. We've got different tape recorders and things, and there's another old tape recorder from the 1960s, a couple of different sort of synthesizers, and this old thing that looks like an old telephone exchange. This is what's called a modular synthesizer. Without further ado, let's get back to our tape recorders, and over here then I've actually brought back all of the sounds from that bend in the stream that I recorded recently out in the forest. And let's start by just hearing some of those. I've put it onto this big old Brennell tape recorder, and we can turn this on and we can actually hear what we got. So that's what we actually brought back. You know, it's actually quite interesting though. If you listen to that sound, you can actually make things very interesting if you start slowing things down. So with these tape recorders, you can slow them down. So I'm going to slow this down now, slightly slower speed, and now that stream takes on a very different sort of quality. And of course, you can do all of these things these days with computers, but I can't help thinking that it's good fun to actually use tape recorders to do it. They're very organic, and you can muck around with them, chop tape up and do lots of different things. Anyway, let's come over to this machine, this old ferrograph here. One of the things that we recorded in the forest was the sound of water running over a log, and that was a completely different sound to what the main sound of the stream was. If we hear the sound of the stream, look, you can hear all the stream, but if we actually zoom in on this particular sound, can you hear we've actually got the sounds of a log. It's just a little contact mic stuck to the log, and you can actually hear the vibrations of the water on the log. There you are. And that in itself, let's wind it back a bit, that in itself creates a really interesting sound. And what I like to do with these sounds, I like to try to, wherever I can, build them up bit by bit. So if you go to record the stream and just take one microphone and just record it, you don't really get a sense of everything that's actually going on. But if you record it with a contact microphone, just getting that sound of the log, and then just a wide microphone, a stereo microphone, just picking up all of the sounds of the birds and so on and so forth, and then another microphone actually close to the river itself, you get all these different elements. And combining them together is really what makes the interesting soundscape. Different microphones create different sounds. So I'll show you the different ones that we actually used in this Bend in the Stream piece. This one is a stereo microphone. There's a capsule that end and a capsule that end. And if I hold it up like that, it picks up sound from all over the place. It's actually called omnidirectional. So it sounds sort of quite immersive. This thing on the top of it looks like a dead cat or something. This is actually a thing for getting rid of wind noise. When wind blows on a microphone, it makes a right racket, but this stops the wind getting through to the mics themselves and makes the recording nice and clear. So that's our stereo microphone. This thing is a contact microphone, and it's the thing that I shoved into the log that was in the stream. And all it does, instead of picking up sounds from in the air, it just picks up vibrations that come and hit this microphone. And that contact microphone gave us all those really nice, interesting, loud, bumby sort of sounds that we actually had on the tracks. That's a contact microphone. This is a rifle microphone. You point it directly at what you actually want to record, and all it does is picks up sound directly in front of it, but not from the sides. I actually use that for the recording of the stream itself, just close in and just aiming directly at it, so we didn't get any other sounds at all, just got the stream. And then finally we've got this one, and this one is called a hydrophone, and this particular thing is one that you can chuck into the water, and that's exactly what we did. We actually put this in the stream to try to get the sounds of underwater, what was actually going on underneath, and putting all of those together, of course, gave us the soundscape that we ended up with at the end. So there we are. That's the different microphones that are actually used for a Bend in the Stream. So let's get back to this, and with this then, let's listen to it again. So we can hear that bumping noise. One of the things that we can do with tape recorders, which is just great fun, is slow them down. So again, we'll slow this down. Let's see what happens this time. So now, it's a much slower sort of sound. And that on its own sounds quite interesting, but you can make it even more interesting by adding a little bit of echo to it. Listen to this. If I stop this, you can actually hear this echo now. Let's try that. So now we've got a really quite interesting sound. So over here, what I'm going to do, let's see if we can mix this together. Let's put this on. So we're going to bring that backing track up. That's the track of the whole of the stream there, like that. And now let's bring in this bumping of the sound of a log, just to give it more interest. And there it comes. Let me turn it up a bit. Like that bumping. Take all of that away, look. That's the bumping, and then that is the rest of it. So we're gradually building up. We're gradually building up our soundscape bit by bit, so the different tapes are actually playing, and Everything's going on here. There you go, that beautiful low sound. I can even turn up the bass a bit. You can really hear it, it's almost like a rhythm. And these streams have all got their own sort of rhythms. You can see by recording with lots of different microphones and then starting to blend these things together, you start to get really interesting soundscapes. Well, the soundscape's one thing, but wouldn't it be good if we could perhaps turn it into a bit of ambient music? I've got it set up here on this synthesizer for a very beautiful sort of sparkly sound. I can't even get that to hold. And that almost reminds me of the stream itself. So let's bring the stream in. Yeah, I like that. We can thicken that up a little bit more. So let's bring in some soft chords. Yeah, a bit more volume. So sometimes all this ends up as a bit of ambient music, and sometimes it just ends up as a soundscape. But when it gets too complicated and difficult, and you have all these different tapes all going at the same time, we might have a synthesizer going at the same time and everything, it all gets a bit tricky to contend with. And so when that happens, what you really need to do is get all of these different individual sounds onto what we call a multi-track recorder, where we've got lots of different sounds all coming in at the same time, and I can control the whole thing all from one place. So that's the thing that I'll show you next. Okay, so this thing here is the multi-track tape recorder that I was talking about. So we've had all these diverse sounds and experiments that have been going on, and now I've put them into this thing. So each of these here is an individual set of sounds. In this case it's stereo, so we've got a left and right, so we turn that up and that up and that up. But every time we turn one of these sets up, it's a different bit of our soundscape. So let's turn it on. And so if I turn this up, this is our first bit then, and this is the background birds. So I recorded this a long way away from the stream. You can hardly hear the stream. You can just hear the bird song and the general ambience. And then this one, that's a bit closer in, listen. There's the birds, and then this one, look. You can start to hear the stream a bit. And then this one, we've got the stream itself really, really close up. What a difference that is from that, look. That's the ambience a long way away, and that's very close up. And then this is just a little bit further away. So we've got various different perspectives, and also we've got, of course, our interesting bumpy sounds that we liked. There it is. Okay, we've adjusted that with a nice lot of bass. So now, what I can start to do is mix the soundscape. So we got some of the birds a little bit closer in, our bumpy bits there, a little bit further away in the distance. So we've suddenly got a whole soundscape. Now, this is where it gets really clever, because I can move these faders around where I want them to be, and sometimes as we make the track we might want to fade some bits up and some bits down, and of course the whole thing gets pretty complicated when you're trying to do all that. But with this particular machine, it allows us to automate everything. So I can turn all these things down now, and if I put this on, as if by magic we'll start to see these things happening. Look. This will be our nice deep bit. So it's remembering exactly what I did with the mix and it playing it back to me. And that is how we pull together our bend in the stream from all these different elements. It'll even turn it down and fade it away. Well, there you have it. A brief look at how I record and compose my soundscapes and compositions. I find it's great fun to make them, but I think it's even better listening to the finished product. So please do head over to my website, newforestsounds.co.uk. Put on some headphones and just sit back and relax and soak up some of the sounds of our beautiful New Forest National Park. Thanks for joining me here today. It's been great to have you along, and I hope you enjoyed it.